Hello everyone, my name is Lorna Rigby. I'm a Senior Associate in the Employment team at Napsons. I'm based in our Liverpool office and I'm here today to do the next in our brief conversations with Napsons, and I'm delighted to be joined by Peter Johnson-Treherne. Peter is Group Finance Director at Heritage GB Group. And for those of you who don't know, Heritage owns a number of tourist attractions across the UK. But today we're going to be focusing on Liverpool and Heritage's tourist attraction in Liverpool, which is RLB 360. So as an employment lawyer, we've been faced with questions about COVID-19 and how employers can make staff reductions, deal with any issues they're having in terms of health and safety. But today, really, I wanted to look closely at Liverpool and a business which is in the tourism sector, which the tourism sector has been affected dramatically as a result of COVID-19. And following Liverpool winning European Capital of Culture in 2008, obviously the visitor economy has been really, really important to Liverpool. So I wanted to chat with Peter really to understand how COVID-19 has affected the business and what we see for the future. And really just get an insight into the day-to-day life of Peter. So Peter, can you tell us a little bit about RLB 360 and what makes it unique?
Thanks, Lorna. Yeah, well, RLB 360, the Royal Library building is a very iconic building in Liverpool, probably its most famous building and one of the most famous in the Northwest. It's one of the three Graces. It's a listed building. The Liver Birds are an icon of the city and a certain football team in the city as well. The Royal Liver Building Tour, we opened it in April 2019. Unfortunately, because of lockdown, we missed our first birthday party, but something we'll hold another time, maybe the second anniversary, hopefully next year. But it's a multi-part tour. It's a very personal, unique experience because it's about 70 minutes long, and throughout the experience, you go with your own presenters. So you're in small groups anyway, and we can talk later about how we've changed the tour. But normally you'd be in groups of up to 14 people, and with a presenter. You've got time to spend in the Vista Centre, which is on the lower ground floor, which has got an interactive model, interpretation panels, some original artifacts, drawings of the buildings, architects' plans, and etc. And then when it's your time, you have a small presentation, a safety video, and then your presenter takes you on a tour of the building. So you go from the lower ground floor to the 10th floor, which is on the roof, and you're actually standing underneath the Great George Clock on the river side of the building. Tells you a bit about the River Mersey, about how the building was built, about the Great George Clock, which is bigger than the clock on the House of Parliament, for example. You then go to the 14th floor and actually inside the clock tower. And there you've got a 10-minute audio-visual experience, which has won a number of awards, both nationally and locally. And that really is a 10-minute show which uses the fabric of the building as the backdrop, which tells you about the history of the Liver building and its place in Liverpool. So it's not just about the building, it's about Liverpool and the waterfront, highs and lows of the city and the building. And then once you've had that experience, you carry on your journey, walk up to the 15th floor, which is the highest part of the building you can get, basically right on top of the clock tower. And you've got your 360-degree views of the building, of the city and the waterfront. There's more interpretation panels there, but your host is also talking to you as you go around. What the presenter says to you, it's not scripted. There's certain facts which he or she has to get across, but then they put their own unique personality on the tour. So I've obviously done the tour a lot of times, and each time I tend to hear or learn something new, because they're constantly researching and finding new facts, and we do sort of test them to keep them up to date as well. So it's a very unique and personal tour. There's also a smartphone app which if you want more detailed information, you can use whilst you're on the tour. And there's some little interactive features on it as well.
Well, I can certainly vouch for it. I haven't come across it for the soft launch, and I think the audio visual experience is absolutely phenomenal and unlike anything I've actually ever seen before. So I think it was wonderful. And you missed the first birthday party as a result of COVID. Obviously, you closed down like a number of businesses were back in March. What have you done in terms of getting it reopened and making people safe to return?
We always operated on a time slot basis anyway. So, Lorna, you would book to say come on at 11 o'clock tour. So we were quite lucky in that time. But what that has allowed us to do is obviously push everyone towards pre-booking. That's important for everyone. So we can collect contact details and we can limit capacity as well. As well as only really accepting pre-bookings at certain times. We have reduced the numbers of people on the tour, and we've reduced the frequencies of tours as well. We did that quite significantly to start with, but as we amended the tour, we've been able to expand that because there's only a certain number of passing points on the tour, so we've been able to schedule the tour, and we've made it slightly longer, a slower pace for people, so we're not crossing people on stairs or anything like that, basically. Because as you know, there's certain passing points within the clock tower on the 15th floor, etc. The other thing is a one-way system around the actual visitor centre. All our staff are wearing either visors or masks, and obviously we're asking customers to wear masks. Contactless payments. We reduced the retail as well, so there's less touch points. Then our staff in between each tour are doing sanitisation and cleaning routine. And also a lot of this is about educating people about what we are doing. So when they're booking the tour, their booking email tells them what we're putting in, what we expect of them, wearing a mask, being courteous to other people, obviously following one-way system. And actually on site, we've got additional signage as well. And I suppose the final thing is when you are actually booked onto a tour, where there's pinch points, for example, in the lift, you will only go in the lift in your bubble. So that might be either a family extended bubble. And then when we're outside, etc., there's plenty of room for people to social distance. What we did when we reopened in early July, we had a number of days where we did 3 days for the NHS, just as a thank you, obviously, because they've clearly been through a very difficult period. And it was lovely because we got a lot of feedback from those people to say we felt totally safe. It was brilliant. And I think the important thing is the signage to people and informing them and just saying, listen, it's simple measures in terms of being, keeping your distance and respecting a one-way system and trying to minimise contact points and us, cleansing afterwards and obviously having hand gel, etc. But I think if people understand, then they can implement it themselves as well, and they see the signage. It's just reminding people, because I think fatigue can sometimes come into this as well, because
absolutely,
we had the very harsh lockdown where everyone was sort of working at home, and then gradually the economy and tourism sector has opened up more and more. But we've got to remember that we are still in a pandemic, and to remember the key but very simple messages.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it must have been quite a challenge to think about, we've never been through anything like this before, to think about how we respond to the challenges that we've got, but equally, make sure our business is viable and we can still keep running those tours and do everything we need to. How do you think Liverpool has reacted on the whole in the tourism industry to the pandemic, Peter?
I think generally we're based in Church Street, our head office, and so I'm walking through the city centre on a regular basis, not only to RLB 360, but for other reasons. And I think Liverpool One and Liverpool Bid, which obviously looks after the main shopping area, have done a really good job in their messaging, because it's been consistent, but the messages, the tone is correct as well, because you don't want to just, you must not do this, you must not do that, you will do that. It's saying be patient, be respectable, keep your distance. And I think that message is very good. And I know the one-way system, okay, not everyone is using it correctly, the one-way system. We can't force people, but the vast majority of people are being respectful and trying to do that. I think in terms of the visitor attraction sector, I think it was difficult for some operators because they weren't on a time system. So basically, they opened the doors and you got your ticket and went in. So they probably found it more difficult to adapt and had to, get a new ticketing system in and more protocols and more staff as well, and train their staff. Whereas we're RLB 360, we're on a time system anyway. All we had to do was modify it. Well, I think generally, I think the way people and businesses are educating people to, social distance, wear masks, be respectful. It's a difficult time for everyone, really. I suppose on the other side of that, businesses have also got to make a profit.
Absolutely.
Managing their staff as well. And the training part of that is important for us as well, to get our staff to have the right training, but also be able to handle issues with customers as well, who might be getting frustrated by delays or by having to do things in a slightly different way.
Do you think there's anything that will stay in the future, that what we've learned from the pandemic, like any of the steps we've taken, will stick with us in the new normal world, I guess, post-COVID?
Yeah, I think. Well, hopefully there'll be at some point we don't have to social distance like we do now. We'd all like that for various reasons. I think what will happen is the pre-booking and the contactless payments and online sales and the real push for that, that's just probably being accelerated. So we'd have probably got to these high percentages anyway, but it's probably being brought forward 2 or 3 years. And the demise of cash as well. I think places are still accepting cash, and we do, but there's definitely a push to do that. I think the important thing for operators of many businesses, be it retail or tourism or hospitality, is getting those pre-bookings, because it allows you to manage your staff and your capacity. So if it's going to be, it could be a weather-related day, it's going to be a dull day, or exactly or you haven't got many bookings for one reason or another, you can manage your staff, and that will help drive profitability. And when it's busy, obviously you can staff up. I think limiting capacity and time slots, I think some of the visitor attractions which didn't do that previously have now had to do it. I think they'll probably stick with that if they find, we can make the experience good for customers and good for staff and good for the business by adopting this new norm. Might be more challenging in July and August when everyone's very, very busy, but hopefully members of the public will appreciate that actually it's for everyone's good, because it makes it a nicer experience, even putting the pandemic to one side, to try to spread out the volume. Yeah,
more organised and more slick, isn't it? In terms of the experience. And obviously that all sounds quite positive to me, Peter. I was looking at some of the stats and can see that I think it was estimated that the COVID-19 has cost the tourism sector about $1 billion in Liverpool, which is obviously difficult to swallow. Do you think it will bounce back?
Yes, I do. Liverpool over the last 10 years or so have been hugely successful in driving international and domestic visitors. There's football tourists, there's the likes of the cruise line, and that's gone from 20 ships a year to over 100 ships a year coming in. Obviously, the likes of EasyJet and Ryanair, they go both ways. So it's not just using that to go abroad. People are coming in, and I've noticed the international element. I think that's what's going to be the challenge, particularly in 2021. Is I think the domestic staycation market will be there, so people coming from other parts of the country or rediscovering Liverpool. But I think the international sector will still be very difficult, because people will be, even if they can travel in and there's no quarantine issues, I think there's going to be a concern over the stability of businesses and airlines. Am I going to lose my money, basically? But I think Liverpool's got some very, very unique features. The waterfront and the maritime history, the music history, the Cavern, the Beatles, etc. Sports, and I don't just mean football. Grand National, golf, etc. Cultural options, the number of museums and art galleries we've got is second only to London, really. Architecture, and I think it's a lovely city to get around. You can get around all the parts of the city in 20-30 minutes walk from side to side of the main city centre. That's everything from Waterfront to Matthew Street to the shopping area. So I think we are well placed for it to bounce back, but I think 2021 will still be difficult because uncertainty. But in the long run, I think we are well set.
And what do you love about it, Peter? What do you love about working in the tourism sector?
It's very, very varied. I mean, we as a business, own the only mountain railway, Wrackham Pinion Mountain Railway in the UK, Wrackham Pinion. We've got a chairlift on the Isle of Wight, as well as the other sites. We've got everything from adventure, golf to hotel. So it's very varied, and I think the sector is as well. So we talk about tourism and hospitality, and that goes for everything from, I suppose, your restaurant to your hotel, to theme parks, to water parks, to historic and cultural assets as well. It's clearly seasonal in the UK as well. The Great British weather, totally unpredictable. So we can go from heat waves in May and June like we experienced this year to in August we've had plenty of high wind days where we've had to curtail operations either on the Isle of Wight for the chairlift or at Snowdon in the railway. But you do obviously get to see a lot of people enjoying themselves. We in a normal year attract well over 2 million visitors to our sites. So it's great, and people are there and enjoying themselves with the families. So that's a huge positive. I think within the tourism sector as well, it's as well as some of the big operators, there's a lot of independent operators as well. So I get to see a lot of them, when we go to industry shows or discussions, and it's nice seeing, people having similar experiences, positives and negatives as well.
Yeah, and we have obviously seen the rise of the staycation, haven't we, in the UK, which is one good thing, I suppose, for businesses based in the UK to come out of COVID.
I think, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we have got some accommodation down in Cornwall up at John O'Groats, and that has done very well since not only we introduced it, but even in this COVID year. I think because people are pre-booking early now as well in the UK, because there's a limit of resources there, and I think people do want quality accommodation as well. And I think the UK can deliver that in the likes of Cornwall and North Wales and Yorkshire, and people have rediscovered the UK. We saw it after 2000 and the early sort of 2000s and all the issues there when there was either ash clouds or companies going bust. There was a staycation, and then it came again. And there's so much to do in the UK. So
I think sometimes it is forgotten about, and it's been useful to see how much there is to do. This might sound like a bit of a bizarre question, but what's a typical day for you, Peter?
I'm mostly based in the office, but I do visit our sites on a regular basis in a normal year. But I suppose the typical day, it could be, although I'm a finance director, so there'll be certain times of the year where I'm doing a lot to do with finance. It might be budgets or year-end accounts. But sometimes I'm also looking at performance of new opportunities, so things we're looking at doing, investments we're looking at making. That could be a new site or a new attraction at a site, or even a refurbishment. So looking at the financial impact of that, but then also discussions on a site-by-site basis or as a group on things like health and safety or HR issues. I mean, health and safety is obviously absolutely paramount to us with over 2 million visitors, even in a normal year, because we are taking people onto big sites. We've got 100 acres down at Land's End, we're going up a mountain, we're carrying people on chairlift. So it will be, looking at that and how we're performing and tracking things, keeping up to date with legislation as well. And I spend a lot of time on the phones. That could be talking to the bank, to insurers, to everything, to utility providers, to lawyers, etc.
Yeah.
So it's very varied. I'd probably say, although I'm group finance director, I probably spend about 30% of the time on purely finance related stuff.
Yeah.
The rest of the time is very varied on all aspects. We're quite a small team here centrally. All our sites have general managers and departmental managers, so they've got a lot of autonomy on the sites. You know, we do set budgets and we do obviously monitor performance, but on a day-to-day basis, they have to make a lot of decisions. That can be, well, the weather's turning, right, we're going to send staff home early, or, you know, these lines aren't selling, so we're going to put promotion on them, or what promotion do we need to do on our tickets, etc. So it's quite
definitely busy.
Yeah, I could honestly say no day is the same. You know, we're not operating 10 factories. We've got, each site is different. So very varied.
Well, that's been really useful, and thank you for joining us today, Peter, to get an insight into the tourism sector. That's been really helpful.
Thanks, Lorna.
Thank you.